Hey guys, Hive9112 here, and today's Tyranid Tactica we're going to look at how to approach facing a gunline army.
Who's to know if your soul will fade at all? The one you sold to fool the world. You lost your self-esteem along the way.
So, Tyranids versus gunline, a very classic matchup. You got your close combat army, well, generally oriented close combat army, can be made shooty, versus gunline. Now, most of your gunline opponents, your typical opponents, will be Imperial Guard and Tau. They're the main two gunline armies you get out there, probably the best at doing it also. But you can face other armies. I mean, orcs, even orcs could do an entire gunline army. You could have looters and shooter boys. Looters and shooters, I quite like that. You can get Space Marines. They can do like missile spam with Stern Guard, and you could do quite a lot of things. But let's just focus on the classics. So Imperial Guard and Tau, and how to get your Tyranids if you're trying to say you're not doing an entire Spore army. You have units that are trying to just move across the board, and how not to get blown apart. Now, there are two main ways you can focus on attacking a gunline army. There's the one way is to castle up, take your list, and you castle everything up. You just put it in one mass. You have your reserves. You're going to focus. You're going to look at your opponent's deployment. You're going to pick your entry point. You're going to pick the weakest spot you can get. So to do this, you're going to want to go second. You're going to want to make your opponent deploy. If he reserves everything, that's good. There's not really a gunline army if he's going to do that. But unless it's a mech gunline, that's another problem. We come to that later. But focus on you want to make your opponent deploy first. So you're going to see where his units are, and you can kind of suss out what he's going to try and do. Now you're going to focus on one point of his deployment. You're going to look across, pick the weakest spot, deploy everything on that one side. Now, if he's doing a foot mech army, this could prove him a problem. You know, one half of his table side kind of has to swing around, and so they can come in range, and then he's not just in giant line too far away. And by doing that, by making them swing in, you know, if your reserves come in behind in that little gap where his men were, and you can just cause havoc by hitting them on both sides. But by castling up, it increases the risk of like template weapon damage and stuff like that. But when you get up to his lines, you know, hopefully you're going to have enough stuff in that one area that all those units, all your opponent's units that you lined up against, you're going to hit them all in one turn, and hopefully just take out like half the army list in one go. Normally, that's not normally the ideal way to do it. Just castling up, sprinting across the board. The best way to do that, if you are going to do that, to try and castle up and take out one section of your opponent's army list, would be to look at your terrain. Another thing, while you're spotting the weakest point, try and plot with the terrain by looking at where all the terrain is, which is the weakest spot of your opponent's army list, your opponent's deployment, sorry, and by using the terrain to try and move up, gaining those valuable cover saves, maybe even blocking line of sight if you're using bastions or some other large piece of terrain. Trying to minimize the damage or increase the way that your Tyranids could save themselves from being torn apart by a gunline. This can become difficult if you're running heavy monstrous creatures. Say you run the Trigon across the board. He's quite big. He's going to be hard to hide. Some Tyranid players they invest in Venanthropes. They use the 5+ kind of cloud radius save. They always give you cover when you're in the open. I'm not a big fan of using Venanthropes. We might come to them in a Tactica. Look at them in more detail. But yeah, so you're going to spot the weakest point and the best route to save your Tyranids, to try and keep as many of them alive. Because if you're going to try and run against a gunline, you're not going to kind of move up, shoot, move again, shoot, because it's not going to work. Gunlines work best at shooting armies that are meant to get in your face, but try and like slowly do it by going up the board. because it's a bit obvious, really. It's in the name, gunline. They're meant to shoot you, and they're just going to rip you apart. So, by going for the weakest point with the highest amount of terrain, you're going to keep most of your models alive, or hopefully keep most of them alive. Doesn't always work, but again, that's just luck and dice. And trying to use your reserves, just trying to hit him in one go. Now that's the first way, just castling up and taking out a section at a time. The second way is to spread your forces like across a majority of the board. You don't want to spread them out too much. Have a little gap in between all of them. Make them quite equally portioned. And again, this works best if you go second. The only disadvantage to going second is obviously he gets first turn of shooting, but you get to counter deploy, so it's not all that bad. You're going to deploy units against his units, so what your units are best at against his best units, and so by doing that, you're going to have units that are good at taking out bits of his gun line. By spreading them across, you're going to get a majority of the board, and you're going to move them all up at the same pace. The key to defeating a gun line and playing a Tyranid list across the board is to keep the pressure on. That's the only way you can really win with Tyranids, to keep the pressure on. You're going to want to tear into his list all in one go. You want to make him think he's going to win, or he's doing really well, he hasn't taken any casualties, then in one turn you just want to destroy most of his units, or just take chunks out of his army. So you spread your guys out. Again, looking at the terrain, where best to put your little kind of bubbles of resistance as you're moving up. Have any reserves you have. You're going to look at your opponent's deployment, and you're going to pick a certain unit. So say you have 2 zoanthropes in a spore. You're going to want to take those zoanthropes and pick an enemy vehicle or infantry unit, but normally zoanthropes best at doing vehicles. And you're going to pick one, and that's their objective, their own objective for that game is to take out, or at least come down and attack. Just keep attacking that one unit, keeping the pressure on while the rest of your guys advance. Same with Gene Stealers. You're going to pick a unit that's trying to hide in the terrain, if it's an infantry unit or a vehicle that's going down one of your flanks, and if they come in on that side, you're going to want to just keep going for that unit while moving the rest of your guys up. Each of these little bubbles will have a section of the army to deal with, and in this way, by just keeping the pressure on and just sticking to one goal, you can just keep the pressure on and just take out little chunks of his list here and there. Or when it works perfectly, your reserves come in, they start dealing hell, he starts shooting them off because they're in his base. Your other guys successfully get up and you just crash all in one go. And in a few turns you can turn a game from impossible odds into a one game. You can win it over easily in a few turns. So they're the 2 main ways. Castle up your force, pick the best route and the weakest point of your opponent's army, and just charge straight for it. Just want to go straight in there, take out that one chunk, then go along the gun line and just mop up really after you've smashed through the middle bit. And the second way is your bubbles of resistance, splitting your guys out, giving them specific jobs. Same with your reserves. Everyone's got a job to do, and just keeping the pressure on, moving them all in one go. Now they're the 2 main ways you can do it. You can do it other ways. There are other ways, I won't lie. I haven't been playing for Tyranids too long, so I don't have that many different tactics, but those are the 2 main ways I'd recommend. Another way you could do it is an entire spore list. Great for objective games, if everyone comes down in a spore. This way you can be really specific in which unit you want to hit with each unit. And obviously against a gun line you can get in closer, you have more, so even the spores will be keeping the pressure on. Not so good in annihilation games, since each spore is so easy to kill and is worth a kill point, but you kind of, because you have a spore for each unit, you're kind of doubling your kill points in a way. It's risky. It's usually effective, but you know you have to kind of table your opponent if you want to do that for an annihilation game. Seeing as you're going to be giving away quite a lot of kill points, and if he's still on the table and he's killed more than you, even though you've got most of your army alive, normally just by killing all the spots, he's got enough kill points to win back his army. So you have to kind of table with the spore list. Another way you could do it is you could do like an entire outflanking army. Some people I've seen pretty much just use like trigons to deep strike, outflanking gene stealers. Get like a HQ choice, like a prime in a pod, and then some zone throats in pods, and everything just comes on from the side, deep strikes, or comes in by spore, so deep strikes again. Quite a few different ways you could do it. I wouldn't recommend just opponent's gunline deploys, you deploy opposite, just like kind of unless you can't really deploy in a line against another line really. Tyranids against a gun line, if your opponent knows what he's doing, he's just gonna focus fire on everything that's gonna hurt his line, and by the time you get there with what you have left, you're just not going to deal enough damage, and it won't just win you the game. So that's normally why with the pockets one, you want to make sure you've deployed correctly. Against a gun line, if you've deployed wrong, your deployment is key, because if you deploy wrong, it pretty much gives your opponent a head start at the beginning of the game. Not only has he got the range and the firepower advantage and the distance between you to his upper hand for the first few turns, but if you deploy on the wrong side of the table and you have to spend another 1 or 2 valuable turns, that's more shooting one of his units is going to get into your army. And you know, so you just want to be really careful with your deployment. Pick which tactic you're going to do, whether you're going to castle or whether you're going to use the pockets. There are other ways, I won't lie. I haven't really figured any of these out yet. I haven't been playing enough. Normally I find nowadays people doing mech lists, so like lots of Rhino rushes, and they seem to come to you, and Marines with assault terminators. So gun lines really are just for guardsmen in town now. Like I said, you can see them in other races, but everyone seems to use lots of small units for objective games, in transports for annihilation, so they're even harder to get. So yeah, there's not really that many gun lines to deal with, but I'm losing track of what I was going to say now. But yeah, if any of you out there, Tyranid players or not, if you know any really good ways to deal with a gun line as a Tyranid army, please feel free to post a comment, or if you have a video on how to deal with a gun line army, put it as a video response. That would be really good. Try and share the ideas here, keep the love going. So yeah, this is part 1 of the general tactics. I'll do a part 2 to this video, and that will be specific units to take against a gun line. So that will be a different tactica. Thank you for watching. I know this is quite a long video. It's like come up to like 14 minutes. Thank you for watching, and I hope this helped. If you're a Tyranid player and you've got a gun line friend, hope this helped. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe. Be a bit cheeky there. But yeah, thanks, and I shall see you guys a bit later.